Coming to you live from the Business RadioX studio, it's Franchise Marketing Radio. Ready to revolutionize your franchise with AI? Franchise Now empowers franchises with advanced AI solutions, automatic processes, and enhanced marketing strategies. From personalized customer interactions to predictive analytics, we help you harness AI to drive growth and efficiency. Transform your franchise with the power of AI. Visit Franchise Now to learn more and take your business into the future. Now, here's your host.
Welcome back, everybody. I am excited to be here today. I'm always excited to talk about franchising. Welcome back to Franchise Marketing Radio, where we delve into the minds of industry leaders shaping the future of franchising. And I'm your host, Rob Ganley. Today is no different, and I'm very honored to have Jeff Dudan with me. He's the CEO of Homefront Brands, and that is a platform company with several world-class brands inside of it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. But Jeff is also a franchise executive with a vision for acquiring emerging brands and making them better and empowering the franchisees through innovative technology and robust franchise systems. He's also a podcast host, speaker, author, coach, and Forbes contributor. It's great to have him on the show. It's a pleasure having you. Welcome, Jeff.
Rob, big fan of the show. I was starting to wonder what a guy had to do to get on this thing here. I appreciate you finally letting me on. I was going to have to drive to Colorado and bang on your door.
Well, exactly. Hey, look, I appreciate that, but I'm a tough guy to get a hold of, and you got to earn your way. Colorado's not a bad place. You can always come by.
That's right.
So, it's great to have you here. All right, so we're going to try to unbox some stuff. It's not going to be easy because you do a lot of things, and I really love to kind of get inside how you think as a leader and as a visionary. But, you've had a remarkable career in franchising, and you're leading Homefront Brands. Can you start by sharing your journey, what inspired you to create? How did you land and come to the platform company concept, and sort of what was that journey that led you there?
Yeah. So my background is first, we all go through many seasons in our life. So, my early years, I was an athlete, college football player. I started a painting business in college. So I was kind of I had that entrepreneurial bug where I recruited all the athletes that were taking classes over the summers to paint college student housing apartments, and went to Appalachian State University, graduated from there, and then cut my teeth in the insurance restoration and disaster response business in South Florida in 1992, helping the people of South Florida recover from Hurricane Andrew. Realized that many of the companies that were down there were franchise businesses. So myself and three other gentlemen moved up to Central Florida to start a business doing the same work. And then I moved back up to North Carolina in 95 to start our second location. And we were a direct business for there. It grew quite well. We ended up being a national and international disaster restoration company. So we did work in Hawaii, we did work in the Caribbean, Canada, really any disaster that made landfall between 1994 and really 2015 or so, we responded to directly. We became a very sophisticated government contractor, but I always had my eye on franchising. And in 2004, I bought up my last partner because I really couldn't get the other guys on with this vision to put at risk or basically throw away a perfectly good, business doing tens of millions of dollars a year in favor of this franchise model. But it was my dream to do it. So I bought my last partner out, hired some consultants. And then in 2005, I responded to Hurricane Katrina, and we set up what would be a 4-year, 9-figure storm response there for us over the next 4 years. And I was driving back in the middle of the night, and what was happening, I had 3 small children at the time, and I was missing my son's first football season. And, I went to 3 colleges, and, it wasn't because I was such a great student that everybody was bidding for me. It was almost like, I didn't do well in the first 2. So I ended up at the 3rd one. And, so
you're an entrepreneur. Like I've heard that from entrepreneurs. They get a little bored.
Yeah.
With things,
But, so history was kind of repeating itself. I wasn't home very much. So I just decided in the middle of the night, driving home through Atlanta, that I was going to sell all of my company stores around the Southeast under the franchise model. and commit to building a franchise company. So that's what I did in 2006, 7, and 8. I sold my offices in Central Florida, Greenville, Spartanburg, South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, and Charlotte, North Carolina, and committed and really worked with those original 4 groups to refine our franchise program. Went to the market in 2009, and I sold the business January 1st, 2019, with 240 locations in 37 states to Home Franchise Concepts out of Irvine, California, the parent company of Budget Blind. So that was my journey. 24 years and 11 months. A general contractor, disaster response guy, but then ultimately converted that to a franchise model, cut my teeth in franchising. And for a couple of years, 2019, 20, and 21, really became an investor advisor to many different franchise companies. I recruited my brother back, who was the CFO of the Carolina Panthers during the sale where Mr. Richardson sold the team to the current owner of the Tepper Group. And so he went through kind of an exit there. I had sold my business, so we got back together and started a family office where we were going to invest in franchise businesses, but also other family office opportunities and things like that. And then really what I realized, a couple of things happened to create Homefront Brands. Number one, as I was doing all of this consulting and advising, and I was in fitness and wellness and all these other things, I really kept going back to the fundamentals of property services, the durable nature of it. There's going to be 100 million more people in this country by 2050. People need places to live. There's increased migration due to remote work. You move out of somewhere, there's work needs to be done. You move in somewhere, there's work that needs to be done. All of this building that's going to happen over the next 25 years to accommodate these people they're going to need hospitals and facilities and malls and everything else. So property services, we believe, is the most durable segment. You'll never find a Homefront Brands nestled between a Blockbuster and a Curves. There's no obsolescence in property services. So that was one thing I recognized it. And the other thing, I kind of looked at the country and I said, well, if I'm going to come out of retirement and really kind of go back to work as an operator and commit for 10 years, because once you place your first franchisee, you're in it. Once you step across the line, like on a football field, like you can't recontract. You've got to play the game all the way to the end. And it's the same thing with franchising. And I really looked at what was going on in the country and, inflation and the stock market and housing prices. And really businesses are a high class asset. And we care deeply about 3 things, one of which is, money on Main Street USA for families to create economic security, to create financial freedom, and a really strong middle class. Because, countries that have a strong middle class, they're solid. When you lose the middle class, places like Venezuela and other places like it's not good. And kids today can't buy a home for less than $400,000 in a starter home. We all made our equity. We built wealth by owning homes that, as we grew up and as we became adults, and we put, cash is king, but equity is the kingdom. So, we really built a home that way. So I wanted to be a part of giving families an opportunity to own a high class asset, which is a business. So we want to be part of that. And the other 2 things that we care about are children. When I came off the road, I coached over 30 seasons of my kids' sports. I'm really big about developing young people. So we partnered with Ben and Candy Carson and Carson Scholars, and we're building reading rooms across the country with them, sponsored by Homefront Brands. And we aspire by 2037 to give 1 million books to children. And then we support veterans with our Operation Homefront transitioning. We're about 60% of where we need to be in terms of volunteer military people. It's a great option for people, but patriotism's really down in the country from about 76% into the 20s. And people aren't volunteering. So we really need people to volunteer for that. So those are the things that we care about. And then we knew that we wanted to create a property service platform that had some very specific offerings in it, like some characteristics of brands that had high average unit volumes in it. So most all of our brands have very high AUVs. We like a residential commercial mix. We like certain margin profiles. We like to identify, what the total addressable market is, and also like how to identify what the customer set is. So that, we've tended to really attract sophisticated, or experienced operators or even family office people or people that want to diversify their existing portfolio of businesses with franchise businesses. And so we aspire to have kind of a smaller number of larger franchisees. So everything that we've built at Homefront Brands, from the technology stack to the brands, to the way that we've set up this business, appeals to those types of people. And we built it, and we've been very fortunate with the franchise partners that we've been able to attract to this point.
Wow, what a great answer. Okay, that was all we needed. No, that was beautiful.
All right, there you go. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. No, it was. I just love though the strategy behind the way you think. Like, and I see exactly what you've built. Like I said, I've talked to some of your brand presidents on the show here, but so what you're saying is you wanted a model where franchisees not only could be multi-unit operators, but multi-brand operators. And it was built in a way that it was leveraged. And we'll talk more about technology and operations, and how the platform company streamlines the multiple brands. But I think it's a big part, though, that enables that to be more doable for a franchisee, right? It's a scale into multiple businesses that complement each other,
yes.
Creating that kind of wealth that you're saying, fewer franchisees that are bigger.
That's right.
So pretty amazing. Yeah, I love that. And I love your heart, man. Thank you for stepping up and being a leader. And when for-profit companies build things that are not only great businesses, but also you do a lot of good work helping different groups of people that really deserve it. And so thank you that you're working on that. And I often talk to brand CEOs that are good at that. And I'm like, thank you. Because if we're all innovative, we can't wait for the government for everything. We got to be innovative and figure things out. And I think we have a lot of leverage here in this country. But thank you. So let's start. First of all, I wanted to ask you a question. You said when you had that business, and this is sort of more of a mental, and I know you do a little coaching too, but you were in a place at that time where you and your partners, and you were the only guy, right? You were kind of like, this is what I want to do.
That's right.
So what was it in your mind that gave you the courage to do that? To do something that, one, you had plenty of money. Two, you had partners that you had relationships with, and probably were saying, why would you want to do that? And, this is crazy. What do you think in your mindset? Was it just the passion to do it? What, for others in that stuck point, because I know a lot of times guys, they get challenged and they don't go to the next tier maybe. And that's kind of what you did. You were very successful. You could have just said, I'm good. You said, no, I want to make a bigger impact. And that has led to more impacts. But tell me, what was it in your mind that day, or in that process of thinking and making that decision? What tip would you give someone else in that boat where they're really struggling?
I really haven't unpacked that. That's really a thoughtful question. So you're asking me to kind of go back to my mindset and how I grew up. So, when I showed up at college for my third school, I literally showed up with 5 T-shirts to my name. I don't even think I had luggage. My mom gave me her 1972 Buick LeSabre so I could drive from Schaumburg, Illinois to Boone, North Carolina. I put the car up in student housing. I never went to get it. It was a one-way trip, right? So, but how many entrepreneurs do you know come from situations like that where they really didn't have a lot of support? And I think it's because if you start, one of the problems with, a lot of kids today is they grow up with means, or there's so many good opportunities that they don't know what to choose, right? So they get paralyzed of all these good opportunities that they have in front of them in this great country. Well, I just was trying to get to the weekend, and then when I wouldn't stay over the summer, I started the business, not because I wanted to start a business, it's because I couldn't survive on $3.15 minimum wage plus tips and feed myself and find a place to live. I'd had to live in the field house on a cot. They had them, but that's not what I wanted to do. So, many entrepreneurs are kind of screwed into existence by circumstances. And when you start with almost nothing, then I have no fear of loss, because it's like, it's all upside. Everything's an adventure. Everything's going to be fun. And if you can't lose something you never had, and you can't go back to less than zero. So, I always had, my risk profile was always probably a little bit out of whack in terms of that, and I think everybody, I tell my kids and anybody who cares to listen that everybody needs an adventure in life. And, when I left, I picked Appalachian State University. I had a lot of other scholarship offers, but I'm like, oh, wow, man, I get to go to the top of this mountain in Boone, North Carolina. It's a dry county. It's probably going to help me graduate. The girls are pretty. They talk funny, all of that stuff. But like I wanted an adventure there. And then when I left there and I went down into the jaws of the hurricane, which was, days or weeks after it happened, that's another adventure. And then it was just, the part of storm chasing is there's an advanced team that goes in. And I always was on that advanced team because you can't wait till the news to tell you what's going on. As soon as the hurricane hits and it leaves, then you need to be ready to go in there because you have customers and clients that are expecting you to be there, and you need to get the lay of the land, and you want to get good jobs too, and you want to get in there. So I think, my mindset was, that I think it was, everybody defines significance in a different way. Maybe growing up, I don't think I felt significant. I don't think I felt like I had a lot going for me. So I think part of what pushed me was this need for significance, and then also kind of probably a need for security and to provide for my family. I wanted to make sure that I was always willing to make sure that I was going to try to have enough, so that they didn't maybe have some of the challenges that me and my brothers had.
Well, thank you for that, man. Very, very inspiring. I felt like there was something in there because that's not an easy thing to do. Like there's all different circumstances, and yeah, very awesome. And then so that led to this world of franchising and success there. And now you're doing the platform company. So I really want to talk about Homefront Brands because you have this heart to kind of give this to others. Hey, if you're like me, I'm going to give you this pathway, and it's going to be a good one. So this idea of the platform company and the brands, again, one of the high level visions is that I want more franchisees that are bigger franchisees, maybe multi-brand, multi-unit as well. Tell me a little bit more. How do you create? Is there a challenge keeping the brands unique and running them separately, but at the same time overlaying this leverage, this platform that gives them an unfair advantage? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's interesting. There's a right balance to in what gets centralized in a platform business, and then what doesn't get centralized. So, as far as key support people, first of all, I think we're a little bit rare in the platform world because we have extremely strong brand presidents. So one of the things that we did was we went out and we found people that had all, with the exception of one of our presidents, who's one of the founders, all of the presidents have built very successful national franchise brands, 500 units and the 300 units and the like, been in franchising for 15 or 20 years. So, investing in good leadership that was just focused only on that brand, and then putting good quality directors, vice presidents, marketing, support, salespeople, technical people in the brand. Like you really, you want those people focused specifically on the people in that brand. And then from a shared services perspective, franchise development is one. Some of the marketing services, especially as they relate to platform services, is shared. Call center is shared. Did I say franchise development? I think I did. Yeah, franchise development, call center, marketing, technology. Those are all things that have a shared element to it. Because, well, number one, we really want to take advantage for the franchisees to understand data and to be able to leverage data. So every piece of data from every point in our universe comes into a single data lake where we have machine learning and AI running inside of there to give us insights in customers and all of those things. So that's very exciting here. But that's the franchise experience, the franchisee experience is a very personal thing. And, they don't want to hear about all this big stuff. They want to hear about like what affects them in the four walls of their business. So you got to make sure like that, they are unique. They are engaged with, they get the support that they need. They know who to call. And, they don't have to, if they need something, that you don't have to go into this, labyrinth of shared platform services to try to get it for them. So there's a real knack to making sure that you're providing that customized, personal, relational, attentive experience to the franchise owner. And then also making sure that underneath you're trying to build this Ferrari of, where the data's all running around and the services, and you're creating leverage in things like supply chain. You're creating leverage in the ability to buy services, whether they be technology or other things. And it's just all working together. So it is a nuance there in terms of doing that. But I'll tell you one thing that probably people don't realize about doing a platform is the caliber of people that you can attract to work at the home office. And that was something. That's why, I mean, you're like, Jeff, why did you start with 5 brands? Right? Why would anybody, do that to themselves, to start with 5 basically emerging brands? And it's because, we needed to create an opportunity where we need to create a dream big enough where everybody's dreams could fit inside of it. And that means our C-suite, that means our presidents, that means directors, and all the way into our call center. And then also for the franchisees, there's some franchisees, you've been in franchising, you understand it. Like, people are going to solve there's reasons people do a business, and they've got a problem to solve, right? It might be college education. It might be something for retirement. It might be a job they can't get fired from. Some people are business builders. They're looking just to build, but everybody kind of takes a different approach to it. And, for all of those people, we needed to make sure that the opportunities, we need to be very growth minded. We need to be very sales minded. I mean, most of our brands, or many of our brands, the things that we look at something that we can be number 1 or number 2 in the space. So we got, one brand that's very unique, first to market, our Temporary Walls brand. I haven't seen anybody follow us in it yet. It'd be very difficult to do. I mean, we're very tight with this, there's very few sources of supply there. It's a new market. We had to create it, but it's going exceptionally well. And we're very excited about that business. And then, our fence business was kind of a fast follower to somebody else who ran out and did that. So, we aspire to do things that, where we can get growth and give opportunities to people to build nice businesses and things like that. We got one coming to market here in September. So, but I think that's,
another. I'm not going to press you on the brand, but another brand coming on.
We have another brand we closed on it a few months ago. That's, so to finish off your question, it's like the reason you do a platform and the way you set it up is to create opportunities for all of the stakeholders inside of it. And then to create incentive that says that if and when we are successful, then everybody's gonna get something maybe they wouldn't have gotten somewhere else, or whether it be a brand president or whatever it is, and then really creating a 100-year legacy company and getting people to commit for 10 years to build it is so we don't have to make short-term decisions, and we can always make sure that the decisions we make today are always going to be in the best interest of the franchisees and what's happening in the 4 walls of their business.
Amazing. So in terms of, you built this company, you just shared a lot of strategy with me, really, really solid. Was there something about the future of franchising that you saw, and maybe some of your team saw, that you wanted to position Homefront to be ready for? Is there anything that you see, positive or negative, but you just see it in the industry and say, we're going to position ourselves ahead of that? Like, I feel like you're putting a lot of things in place in anticipation. Is any of that happening? Is there some things you see that you think are anticipating in the industry, in the franchise industry, that you're positioning Homefront for? Is that a lot of the thinking for some future ideas? I mean, what do you think?
I think if you pay attention to some of the macro trends out there, I mean, the durability, some of the things I talked about, certainly, it's very, I mean, these things are always going to need to be done. And at the same time, kids don't do these things anymore. So there's going to be less people doing those. So So if you can find ways to help your franchise owners own the technician, or own, or provide the labor, acquire the customers. I mean, I think those types of trends lend themselves well to franchise companies, which can be very efficient, which is a lever. We can create leverage in customer acquisition. We can create leverage in the way jobs get done. So I think those lend itself, because there's less people going to be doing this type of work, and less people maybe competing for it. I think that there's another real trend just around business ownership. I think, if you look on the internet, it's how much stuff running through your Instagram or your TikTok feed or whatever it is about, hey, start a business today, or this is the business that I did, or I'm a business owner. I'm like, business ownership has never been more in your face. I mean, growing up in the 80s, I mean, if somebody was a business owner, it was almost odd.
Yes.
It's like, they got the big house on the corner there in Schaumburg, Illinois. What was that guy do? Oh, he owns a car. Yeah, they own the car dealership, and it's like, oh, okay. Or, but it was rare. I mean, it was much more rare, but now everybody's got if it's not a full business, maybe it's a side hustle. So, and I think that's great. I mean, small businesses, between 46 and 60% of our GDP, 99% of people work for a small business. Franchising is a subset of that small business number, but I mean, I think it's great. And then you see things happening. There's always things happening in corporate America, consolidations and layoffs and things like that. So I think there's just a steady flow of people that are looking to finally say, I want to do something for me. You know what? It might be harder. And it is. Like, we're not a company that says it. We tell people at Meet the Team Day, if you have not owned a business, might be the hardest thing you've ever done. Yeah. So if you're going to do that, we're radically transparent. We have a learning management system that's a world beater. It's rated 9.7 out of 10 by our franchise owners. We've been building learning management for 2 years. I mean, we're really, really good at it. We're over supported. And we're doing our best to keep up with AI and all the changes in technologies. But like, at the end of the day, we don't set your alarm clock. I'm not going to tap you on the shoulder to get you out of bed. I can't make these relationships in the community that are going to give you not a good business, but a great business. Yeah. So if you're willing to match, our energy and our effort with your energy and your effort, then this is going to be great. But if you want somebody to tell you that it's going to be easy and it's just going to, everybody's going to do it for you, then there's other companies I would refer you to.
Someone asked Elon Musk, about, hey, what advice would you give for entrepreneurs? It was just like, you got to be ready to grind. I mean, it's like, don't do it unless you're just so compelled, because it's not an easy thing, right? Now, he's speaking from a guy that just did it without franchising. And I always say, franchising is such an amazingly successful model for people to bridge over from something where they worked for someone their whole life into entrepreneurship. And it is hard. It's that mental change of, hey, wait a minute, the buck stops with me. I get everything around me, but I've got to put some things into motion. Right? Yeah.
I mean, I talk about Elon Musk. So I do the first hours of training on building your team, and I use him as an example for two things. Number one, he will tell you it's horrible. It would be horrible to be inside of his head. And I think he's either OCD or ADD or whatever, Asperger, whatever he's got. Right. But like, because of that, he has no limiting beliefs. So, when he says, for example, well, we're going to use all the resources on this planet one day, so we need to be an interplanetary species. Then he just says, well, where's the closest place we can go? He says, Mars. He says, well, if we're going to colonize Mars, we need this amount of tonnage to get up there. And to do that, we're going to have to launch, since we can only carry this much tonnage on a rocket, we're going to have to launch a rocket every hour. And he just does a regression analysis because he has no limiting beliefs. And he's a great, he's a great engineer and a great physicist and all of these things. Next thing you know, you got rockets landing back on the pad after launching something into space, where he can reload it every hour on the hour, and he can launch these things. So, now, and so I contrast that, and I'll say, what's your, you're doing a business plan to do X dollars. I'm not going to use numbers, but you're going to do a business plan to do X dollars. I said, now, does that sound like you're thinking big enough? Gun to your head, if you had to do twice as much in half the time, gun to your head, families pushed off a cliff, like you have to do it. You could figure out a way. You could get the resources to do it. The reason that you're conservative in your projections is because of self-limiting beliefs. Oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm not sure if I can do it. I don't know. I don't know. Look, that's an inflection point in people's life to be able to say, hey, man, I just wrote a check for a business and I can make this anything that I want to, if I don't get in my own way. So, it's exciting. I mean, it's a great place to be. Now in the grind of it, we get really myopic because things get really close to us when you're launching a business in a new market and you're meeting everybody and your employee doesn't show up and all of those types of things. But for every bit as hard it is to do, it is 10 times as rewarding when you do it. And I would never give up, my entrepreneurial challenges, experiences, 6 months sweating in the middle of the night, because I needed to make something happen, or I had a big job in a disaster and, it was $2 million and they brought in a consultant to try to cut our bill and said, we're not going to pay you for a year. And I'm like, well, I got about $1 million worth of bills I got to pay in a month on this job. So like but it's like, look, here's the thing. It's not fatal, Rob. It's not going to kill you.
We're going to be alive. We can still breathe. You
might as well do
I can
it.
see the mountains.
Yeah. So anyway, that's
huge. No, man, thank you for that. Cause like, I think we all are in that place. Like for me in my journey, I've found myself in that place many times. And that's why I asked you, because like you never stop getting challenged. Right. And then you can acquiesce and say, I'm done. But like you kept breaking through. That's what was interesting to me. And I think you're right. I think it is that limiting beliefs. It's hard to undo that. It's hard to get to the bottom of that, right? It's in your subconscious. It's deep.
Yeah.
So,
well, 10x, by the way, 10x is easier than 2x. There's a business group called Strategic Coach. Dan Sullivan's the founder of it, man. He wrote a book called 10x is easier than 2x, man. And, to have exponential thinking, it's almost bigger. It's almost easier. It's easier for me to do what I'm doing now than it would have been for me to just do one brand.
Interesting. Let me follow up on that. So you have 5 brands simultaneously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have this great vision of what you want to see happen for the owners inside those brands and the organizations. How do you balance that? I mean, how do you scale 5 at the same time and successfully lead each of those leaders to doing what it is you're trying to accomplish, right? This vision of more franchisees that do better, like own more, right? Fewer franchisees, more successful. Like how do you lead 5 brand presidents at once and make that happen? What are maybe one key tip you could leave with us?
Yeah,
like
look, maybe don't do it, but thank you. It was hard. So you need a bit of a war chest, because we acquired the businesses between the end of 21 and the middle of 22. And we didn't get them to market really until like March of 23. So, our 200 owners, our 600 territories, it's really all in about 16 months. And we had to spend all of that time platforming these, right? So new tech stack, new POS systems, staffing the business, hiring the executive team, hiring an in-house lawyer. I mean, we had a full C-suite, and we're not selling anything yet. So like you need a good bankroll, and you got to be willing to you can't hesitate about the things that you need. But because of what we had, we were able to have conversations with talented people and say, this is what we're doing. This is our progress. This is what we've got. These are the brands. And, and we were able to get people that were excited and interested enough to get on the ground floor of doing that. But you can't, you have to, the size of the building that you're going to build is going to determine the depth of the foundation that you need to put in. So if I was just building one brand, I mean, I could build one brand off the side of my desk, and put a half a dozen people in it and put a tech stack in it and, grow it at some whatever, a normal rate or whatever it is. But when you're doing the 5 brands, accelerated development's going to be required because you've got all of this infrastructure in place. And now you've got to, you want people to take advantage of it. So like we had to build a deep, deep, deep foundation all the way to the bedrock, like we were building a skyscraper. And, so then if you're building 100-year legacy brand, and you're committed to 10 years to do it, and you're really not worried, you don't have private equity breathing down your neck to say you've got some numbers to hit, then you can make the decisions that are going to ultimately be in the best interest of the franchisees. And by the way, did not get it all right. I mean, we were chasing our tail, and I mean, marketing's complicated now. You got lots of, I mean, the tech stack. I mean, the franchise owners have been really great to collaborate with us on these things. But like it was, some of this stuff, even though we've been working on it for a year, was still just in time. And then really you can't, there's a manufacturing analogy that says you can't really fix anything until there's volume running through it. So even though you build this team and this infrastructure, until you get franchise owners going through onboarding, I think what did we launch in the fourth quarter? 80 owners or something going through onboarding in the fourth quarter.
That's crazy.
I mean, and then they're all out in their marketplaces and they need calls every day and they need stuff and they need stuff and they need stuff. So yeah, it was a challenge and it was a grind, but man, we do have great franchise partners. They're being successful out there. They're out there, they're winning, and we've got a great group. So, but you teach people how to treat you. So, I mean, we treat them like the partners that they are. We don't go to the contract. We don't beat them up over things. We pick up the phone. It's simple, right? Sunset rule. Call everybody back before sunset. We do a monthly net promote. Yeah, we do a monthly net promoter score. So, I mean, not everybody's feels like they got everything they need, but like every month they have the ability to tell us how things are landing and where they need help or what they really liked or whatever. So we do a full net promoter score with our franchise network once a month, not once a year, just to make sure that, we're staying, clearly in tune, and they can request for a call back from me or our president of franchising, Michael O'Driscoll, and, 3 to 5 calls a month we got to make out of our 200 owners to call and say, they wanted to hear from us about something, but that's very normal. And, and the noisiest time for anybody starting a new business is that first year.
Yeah. Yes.
So, we had 180 businesses less than 12 months old.
Wow. That's
right?
Yes.
So think about that.
I can see why you said don't do it. Yeah.
I can laugh now, but we wouldn't have been able to do it without the collaboration from all the and the advocacy of the franchisees and all of that. Because at the end of the day, not down to a man or down to a woman, but in general, they care about the same things we care about. And, we believe in the same things. We care about the same things that they care about. And, like at the end of the day, business is hard, but like, you got to know why you're doing it. And if you have purity and clarity of purpose, and you're, people say, what do you look for in a franchisee? And I say that the most important, capitalization, that helps. Sales ability, that's good. We look for franchisees that are willing to resolve conflicts in a healthy manner, because business is full contact and there's always going to be a conflict. And if, whatever we accomplish and overcome this year, then there's going to be more things to overcome next year because we're going to grow again. So, we need collaborative, mature, emotionally intelligent franchise partners that we can say, yep, that's the problem. Okay. How are we going to fix it and who's going to do what? Okay, let's get after it. And, one of the, there's a great quote that I use in training. It's the person who can most accurately describe reality without laying blame shall emerge the leader.
I love it.
And it's, I teach them rush to conflict, pick up the phone, accurately describe reality. This is what's happening, not laying blame and spending time getting people mad or upset, and just getting down to the problem from a very logical, mature way and moving forward. It's a nice place to be. It's not always easy, especially when something's happened that costs you time, energy, or money. But aspirationally, that's what we train. We have a staff of 70 people here at the home office already. And so we work with our people to be that in the life of our franchisees. That's who they
embody exactly what you want them to be doing, and reflecting
that's who we need to be. And again, you teach people how to treat you. So if we are that way,
right,
then people will mirror that back.
Love it. I thought it when you were saying earlier about you don't know much about anything until you got some business flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like going there. And it reminds me of a book called Ready, Aim, Fire. Ready, Fire, Aim. And it's like, you really can't get good at aiming unless you start firing. You got to learn a little bit. But so it kind of is true. But I also, as you were talking, I just thought of one idea, one question, and kind of just to maybe tack on to what you were saying. But as a leader, is there any like tough calls that you can think of? You've been in a lot of circumstances. You had to make a tough call, tough decision. Was there anything you can point to, a decision or a tough call that you made that now influences the way you're leading? So some of the things you're telling me, like lead by example and stuff, did any of that come from some tough calls in the past that you learned from?
Man, there's always tough calls to be made. And I can't think of if you're asking me for a specific example, it's, I'll tell you one thing that used to be tough calls is that, for some, sometimes things happen in people's life that cause them to have to leave the business. You have divorces, you have people that have to go into recovery, you have all kinds of things that happen. And, sometimes maybe if it's at the beginning of a deal or something went wrong, like there's money involved and things like that. But, I learned something from Charlie Chase. He always said, exit people with honor. And, it used to be like, well, we could terminate these people, we could take the business from them and we can resell the territory. But man, they're already down and they're going to lose all their money. And it's just really going to put them in a bad spot. Or what we can do is work really hard to try to find a resale for this business, try to make them as whole as possible, waive our fees to make sure that they get as much money as possible, and send them on down the road and maybe not much a worse location. If they're going to be in a worse position for whatever's happened to them, then we don't want to be part of making it worse than it already is. So like, that's something that we've, if we detect that it's not working for somebody and somebody's struggling or somebody's in pain or something like that, like we'll, and you could say, well, you're going to set a precedent. Now everybody's going to want that same treatment. It's like, no, you can look at individual situations differently. If you find somebody that's not a good citizen and whatever, then, you can treat them differently. But I think, those tough calls, two things I'll say. I wrote a book called Discernment. And as I was finishing it, I was actually, we were out to dinner. It was my wife and it was my young son. And I will disclose, I was having 2 glasses of wine, and she didn't charge me. The person didn't charge me for the second glass of wine, and we recognized it. And I looked and I said, well, I said, my son is looking at me to see what I do here. And, I just looked at him. I said, hey, if you ever know what the right thing to do is, you just do that. So I told her, I said, you didn't charge me for the other glass of wine. You need to, somebody else brought it. You need to put it on the bill. So, that's one thing. If you ever know what the right thing is to do that. I had a second thing. I don't remember what it was right now. That I got caught up inside of that story. But what was the original question?
Well, it was what if that a tough call or some
Oh,
series of how did that
I
influence
got
your
the second
leadership
thing.
style now?
Here's the other thing is too, people say these are our values. Zappos had a set of principles that they lived by, and they built $1 billion business in 9 years. And it was great because they were wacky and crazy, and their principles reflected that. We have a set of values. And what I tell our franchise owners is the values will help you in difficult situations to break the tie. If you don't know what to do, lay that decision against the value. Because by the way, oftentimes you're trading a little bit of money you're going to lose for reputational equity.
Mm-hmm.
So, your reputation is the relationship you have with people that you've never met. So it'd be like, well, this was a mistake. 3 parties are equally at fault. Contractually, I could stick this to these people, or we can resolve this and everybody lives to fight another day. And a lot of times you got to look at your values and say, like, how does it, and a lot of times with staff, with employees, this is a really high performing person, but they really offend our respect value. Our values are community, accountability, respect, excellence, and service, or servant's heart. And those are our values, right? So like, okay, well, we have to be servants to our franchisees. We've got to be in the pocket. We got to be close enough to them so that if they, if something's going wrong, we see it in the numbers, and it's like, well, the leads are bad, or my market's slow, or, my salesperson, blah, blah, blah. And then, if you're close enough to them, they'll say, hey, I'm going through a divorce. My eyes off the ball right now. I'm really struggling. But we can't, if we're not close enough for them to be honest with us, then we can't help them solve the problem. We got to make sure we're working on the right problem. So that's one example. Or, if having respect as one of your values means that, they're not going to call your marketing manager, your support people, or your call center people and scream at them and swear at them, because that's just, like if that happens, then they're going to get a call from me, and I'm going to say, look, man, we would never speak to you that way. And, I know, like, you can't do that. Whatever the answer's going to be, whatever I have to do to get you out, like, I'm not going to, we're not going to tolerate that. We don't do that. So, so like, your values, whatever they are, number one, they've got to align. Your values really get momentum. They really work for you if you have 3 points of connection. Number one, they connect you, your team, your franchisees all together. They connect your customers together in the way that your brand promise and your fulfillment to your customers is. But then the key is you connect it with the world. And if you can get your values connected on those 3 points of connection, they will help you. They will increase the velocity and the momentum of your business and the scale of your business. In AdvantaClean, we had CARES values as well, but like, we lived that through our partnership with St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. So we were one of 65 national strategic partners, and we couldn't raise as much money as Domino's Pizza, the $9 million just by rounding up to the next dollar on pizzas or whatever. But we did it through service. So anytime a child survived a cancer treatment in Memphis at St. Jude, or at any of the pediatric oncology centers around the country that ran the St. Jude protocols, and they had an outplacement where they were going to send a child that survived home, and they had a mold issue or an air quality issue, our franchise owners would go out and do that at either a greatly reduced or even free. And that was really important to our franchise owners. And so that was our aligning our CARES values with the world and in performance of those services. And we took our Franchise Advisory Council to, Partner Summit at St. Jude. And it was just something, again, your people, like when they would come in and say, I want to be the face of the business. I want to help people in my community when their house burns, floods, or they have mold or whatever it is. And I want to be part of this. And like, we knew that, they were probably our people.
Yeah. And you're like, a lot of things you're sharing, it reminds me of like being a servant leader. There's so much to it. I can see you've unpacked a lot in your business. I appreciate you, man. Yeah. St. Jude's is, I can't even go there. It's the best. Children in that situation, my heart is right there. So yeah, it's great that you're working with that organization as well. I want to wrap up on a higher note, maybe something a little geeky, a little techie. I did talk to a few of your brand presidents. So your Window Heroes business and Designery both have and I'm sure all the brands, and I know you have a dashboard. I want to talk about how this could work if I own multiple brands, but also let's talk a little bit about tech, your culture. Like you guys are doing some innovative things, and you also only do them if it has a true, as you said, you look at your cares lens, and you look at, what's going to impact my franchisee and help them, what's going on in their four walls, right? And I know that's how you think, but you're finding ways to also be very innovative with some of the things you're doing. What's behind that? How are you leading that? Is that something that kind of baked into your culture to try to be at the bleeding edge, if it makes sense?
I think so. So one of the things that I'm personally doing is I'm spending a lot of time out on the road in what I consider to be very high-end networks, things like the Genius Network or marketing networks or things like that, and really understanding like who is doing the really innovative things in customer acquisition, customer journey, conversion, like what are the AI tools that people are incorporating, because I think it's really, really important that we compete in that way. I mean, we're a Microsoft shop, so we basically just went with a big, first of all, we wanted security. We wanted to make sure we got a very, very secure, environment. So it's a little bit annoying sometimes with the two authentication, and we've got some complaints from franchise owners about, I'm on the phone, I'm going in my car and I try to log in from home, I got to authenticate and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but we're not hacked,
Right.
we didn't get hacked. So security was a big thing for us. So going in the Microsoft environment, using Power BI, creating a big Azure data lake, and all of that stuff that we did. That was just kind of table stakes for big companies, right? Mm-hmm. Table stakes for the company that we weren't, but the company that we, aspired to become.
Right.
So that's good. Now you've got to look on all the applications that, each brand has unique requirements for tech stack and the applications that it really needs. Because we've got a fencing business, you got to do certain design there and takeoffs of materials, and then we have a kitchen, bath, and closet concept. So, which we do teledesign centrally located out of our sales center. And so we're able to help franchisees start well and go well by acquiring revenue before they even come to training or they even have their store open, right? If we know that, like, have you ever done anything that didn't start well that went well? Usually not. So
right.
Yeah, we're very, very focused on even, we've moved all of the business, the market introduction and the sales and business development up even to before training, and trying to get as much opportunity and as much of those activities completed before people launch, so that they're even doing it like right away. We need them getting revenue. As opposed to waiting to say, oh, you've come through training now let's go start. And then they don't get revenue for another 60 or 90 days. Like that makes no sense, but that's the way it's typically done. So we've moved all those things forward us to start well and go well. And that creates some challenges in technology because we've got to get things stood up. Social media pages, websites, POS systems, all of, everything's got to be kind of set up like early to enable us to do all that kind of stuff. But and then, I really like where we are with our 24 roadmap in terms of incorporating AI tools. But it was, it hasn't, I don't think we're splitting any atoms quite yet. I don't think we're, I think we're doing all the good blocking and tackling and, providing the good fundamental technology stacks that each of the brands uniquely needs. But that's not where we're going to stay. So like we have a ton of pilots going on with like some of the cutting edge tools out there across many of the brands. We're really, and we're not stopping to invest. We're saying, well, hey, we're looking for a certain earning this year. No, man, like we have a 10-year view of this. So we're 2 years into a 10-year view. And, so we're not tightening up the purse strings on this platform. We know that we know that at the end of the day, like it'll all come back to us, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like saying, like, Homefront and others like you that have the vision you have. You're 20 years from now, this is you'll be standing, right? Like, I do think this consolidation, the platform concept is
Well, I might
sort of
not be, but the platform will be. I'll have a flannel blanket on my knees on a porch somewhere,
you might
probably.
be chilling. You might be chilling, but
A rocking chair somewhere.
nah, man, I think you go out with your boots on. You're going to be one of those guys that's
Yeah, you're right.
skydiving at 90. Yeah, come on, who are you kidding?
I'm gonna drop dead at my desk.
I was going to ask you, like, is there something that you guys do that you think other franchises don't do? And I didn't, but you kind of answered one version, which was this idea of getting people going, success, right? That momentum, that feeling, and of course, revenue or pre-bookings or whatever it is you guys do. But that's brilliant. Yeah, you got to push that forward. That it's not only that you're getting the money faster, which is just basic math, but which it does to the psychology probably of the franchisee and able to get that momentum early in that first year,
Oh, very much so. I mean, we see in our designery concept, we see a lot of, we see a lot of stress related behaviors before they get their location open. And then once their studio's open and they got contractors coming in and people coming in, it all goes down to business as usual. And, but getting that first sale for anybody, like if you haven't, I mean, it's always a great story because every franchise owner will always remember that first sale and how nervous they were. And they asked for the business. And then when they get it, it's like, oh yeah, we do this all the time. Sure. Just sign here and we'll, whatever. And then they just, they go bananas, right? Because it's like, I made a sale. And then, but like up until that point, I mean, it's all investment. I mean, it's all investment and training and, the stress that comes along with that. So yeah, getting the dollars flowing and getting some early wins really helps from a psychological perspective. You're absolutely right there.
Yeah. Being an old school sales guy, I was tasked with that many times. Go in and make that happen. Build the territory, hit the quotas, hit the numbers. And it is about that momentum, right? I always knew that. So I found ways to do that. And I always train on that too. You feel, even a good phone call, you take that and build on it. It's just keep going.
Yeah.
But no, that's good stuff. So before I let you go, we've covered a lot of ground. I would love to have you here all afternoon, really. I think we could hang out. I learned a ton. I appreciate everything you're saying. It's really been helpful for me, even personally.
Awesome.
Yeah, no, really. I get some guys on here that have a background in coaching or, done a lot of things. It's encouraging. Yeah, it's inspiring in a lot of ways. So I appreciate you. Any final advice for somebody that's in that, like, when you're innovating things, you do have to face that fear of uncertainty. You were talking earlier that you might have been wired different in your background and, everything's upside. And I think that's beautiful. And I think that could be anyone's answer, but
yeah, I'm too stupid to fail.
yeah, you're too stupid to fail. I love that. I'm going to use that. But what would be the advice? Like if someone is in that decision point of breaking through the net, it could be a corporate person looking to start a franchise. It could be someone who has one franchise and wants to get more, or a franchisor that's saying, I got to go like you've done. And what kind of advice? Is there some one simple piece of advice you might leave someone to inspire them to get to the next level?
It's not fatal. It's if I die building this platform, it's not because of the platform. It's because of other life choices. And so many times people were, it's trade-offs. Like, well, I want that, but I'll have to trade this. So what you're saying is people are at an inflection point and they're thinking, do I go to the next level or do I not? So I've learned that there's three things that are always circling around inflection points. Number one is people that you're responsible for. It could be your family. You might, I don't want to do that because I'm responsible for my family. People that you want to do something with, or people maybe that you want to get away from. So there's always this other people element at these inflection points. The second thing is there's an adventure or an opportunity. There's something to get. There's some gain. There's something to get that you don't have right now. And the third thing is there's a risk of loss, because I've always had to give something up in favor of something else. And, you can say, well, that's a scarcity mindset, but the reality of it is, you can think abundantly. I mean, you can look at Elon Musk, the example you brought up. And I mean, he, solar company, boring company, car company, space company, Twitter company,
No fear.
okay,
Too stupid to fail.
Yeah. Well, he's not, he's brilliant, but like you would say, but like, to get Twitter, I mean, he had to give up probably, he's probably got a company that's worth $20 billion, but he paid 44 for it, but he wanted it, so, okay, well, now what's the opportunity? And I heard this, people talking about him, it's like Twitter is more influential internationally with other governments of other countries than it even is here, because it's one of the world's largest platforms and they use it to extensively. So, so for $24 billion, he basically got the ear of every country in the world. So he probably has a plan for that, and he probably knows what that's worth. But, on a smaller scale, like, well, if I'm going to, buy another franchise, then I'm going to have to risk some money, and I might have to risk some time, or something else might have to come off my plate, or whatever it is. So, but I do think that there is, if you're at a certain level, and to your point, you're wanting to go to the next place, there are tools that you are not using right now in your life that would help you understand how you can have it all. You don't have to give up your kid's football game to grow this business. You don't have to. Now, you might have to do things differently, and you might have to change. So one of the things I do with our franchise network is I do a 90-minute owners only with Jeff every second Tuesday of every month. And it's agnostic to the brands. So I bring the owners on. And this last week, we used Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time. And I introduced it a couple months ago. I told them to read it this month. And I had 2 franchise owners come on and talk about how they use those tools to create leverage and time. One guy had used the playbook methodology from that book and used Loom to create videos, and outsourced his entire permitting process and he saved himself 30 hours a week by using a virtual assistant out of the Philippines, using the method. So here's a guy that for, X dollars an hour, I'm not going to say, I don't want to offend anybody, it wasn't a lot, for not a lot of money, he was able to save 30 hours of what he was doing to be able to go out and do sales or do whatever else he was doing. So there's tools like that. There's tools. Strategic coach is a thing that people can get into. There's books, there's ways, but there are always efficiency tools that will help you scale, because the only thing that you really need to understand is how to allocate your time and your focus. Yeah. And once you understand how to allocate your time and your focus, you can do anything. Honestly, you can. So people that aren't thinking that way are like, well, I can't add another, restaurant on top of my 2 existing restaurants because it'll kill me. Well, maybe it will, but maybe it doesn't have to, or maybe you need to grow in a different way. I'm not saying that you should expand, it might not be the best, that might not be the model you want to expand in, but I think, when you get to an inflection point and you decide that you want to go for something, I also think you need to maybe do a little extrospection and examine yourself and see if you're really operating at a level and if you're using the tools and you're thinking the right way and you're allocating your time and your attention and your energy the right way. Because oftentimes, I struggle with that every week. I have, this I have an executive assistant here, and then I got this over here, and we're just shuffling around like where I'm spending my time and attention to get the biggest impact on behalf of all of our franchise owners at Homefront Brands.
Yeah, I was just real quick kind of thinking about all the different things, the layers of things you have to choose. And yeah, it's a high impact, low effort sort of, rank it in a way that, what are the most important things today?
Well, and I'll give you one last thing too. It's another book from Dan Sullivan called Who Not How. So if you're stretched to your capacity, but yet you want to grow in a certain way, nothing new without a who. So if you put the right person or the right partner in place on the right opportunity, it will go well. If you put the wrong people or the wrong partners in place on an opportunity, it will go poorly. And it doesn't matter how much time and energy you put into it. So picking the right who, if you want to, it becomes so much more about the people involved when the things get outside of your ability to control all of the details.
You need people to do what you would do and act the way you act, which is the leadership part. But you got to be there where you've earned that trust. You've gotten used to trusting the people around you. I know that's a process for a business owner as well. But amazing advice, my friend. I appreciate your time. What's the best way just to kind of engage with Homefront Brands? Homefrontbrands.com, clearly. Any other, what's your advice for reaching out to get more information about?
Yeah, homefrontbrands.com. That's been a website that's been up since the beginning, but we got the new version coming out first week of September. So if you don't like it, just come back in September. But homefrontbrands.com, you can get to us. If you want to hear more, if you want to hear more of this garbage from me, you can go to On the Homefront podcast, wherever you get them. We're top 13 on Apple this week. We touched 13 for entrepreneurship. So great guests on there. They're either fun, fascinating, or famous people on there. So a lot of people that you would recognize and that share their stories on there. So On the Homefront, YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Give us a like and subscribe. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, just Jeff Dudan on LinkedIn. And if you want a free copy of my book, which is called Discernment, the Business Athlete's Regimen for a Great Life Through Better Decisions, you can go to my Instagram, which is just Jeff Dudan. And there is a link tree there where you can, if you give me your email address and your phone number, you will immediately get an electronic copy of my book sent to you. If you like the paper copy, you can spend a few shekels on Amazon and have it right away. But lots of good stuff in there, especially for people that are thinking about how to think about business. And if you're thinking about starting a new venture, there's a lot of tools and fundamentals in there that will give you a framework with which to go into that venture.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Yes, lots of good resources. Play it back. You know what you got to do, but get them resources because there's some good ones in there. I appreciate you, man, offering all that. It's great to have you. I really hope to have you back. I know you'll be doing lots of cool stuff, so definitely would love to have you back here. And it's been a pleasure. Thanks again, Jeff.
Yeah, Rob, it's been great. Thanks for having me.